Hey guys, Likey here, back with another video, and this video is just going to be a complete feature on the new card that has been added to the game, the Rascals. So here they are. I have them at level 7, almost level 8. I know some of you might not have unlocked them, but this video will definitely still be useful for when you do unlock them. It'll also be useful for like knowing kind of how to counter them and just general gameplay with them. So, to start this video, let's do a quick review of the cards at tournament level, of course. It's kind of interesting because to see their, the actual individual levels at tournament standard, you have to hold the show tournament level, and then you have to click on this little I button. So, the Rascal Girl has almost the same stats as an archer, same range, and same speed, things like that, except it does considerably more damage and has considerably less health. So that means that she can be killed by log and stuff, but she also does a lot more damage, making her better than just like an archer, in my opinion. And then you have the Rascal Boy, which is like a knight, but it does considerably less damage than a knight, and has considerably more health. So what I think about this is, because they're not just a knight and archers, you can actually balance them and make them a bit different. I feel like they're better than just a knight and archers, because they're a lot more specialized to what they do. Because the boy, he's like really specialized in health. Like, you know, he's tanking for the girls, so obviously he has a lot of health. And then the girls are really specialized in damage, meaning, you know, they don't really have to worry about health because the Rascal Boy is taking all of the damage for them. So all they really have to worry about is damage, and they do a lot of damage. So it's basically a more specialized knight and archers, which I really like. They fit well in a lot of decks. I have 5 decks set up right now, and so I'll be covering each one of these decks really quick, and these aren't necessarily the best decks, but they are good decks that they're decks that I feel the Rascals fit very well within. So let's just do a quick coverage of the decks really quick. So we have this deck, which is like the Hog Inferno Dragon Guards deck, except it has Rascals subbed in for, I believe, Lumberjack. So this deck did have Lumberjack in it. Rascals is a great sub for Lumberjack because they're really good on defense. They have high DPS. And they also bait log for the Princess. They're great support with the Hog, especially on a counter push. And they generally fit very well in this deck as a defensive to offensive counter push card, which is where I feel they fit a lot of times. Now this is the bridge spam deck that I made. So the thing is, a lot of people use their log on bridge spam. And when they log your bridge spam, then you could really punish with like Rascals and more bridge spam. So let's say you sent in like an Ice Golem and a Dark Prince, and then they logged that. And in the other lane you could go with Rascals and Battle Ram. And now they can't really get rid of the Rascal Girls very easily, because they don't have their log now, and the Knight Troop, the Rascal Boy, is really going to tank very well for the Battle Ram. So it really synergizes well in the bridge spam deck, so I feel like this deck will be really strong. And next, this is an annoying bait deck. It has both small spell and heavy spell bait. So the Minion Horde and Zappy's bait their heavy spell. The Goblin Gang, Goblin Barrel, and Dark Goblin bait their small spell. Now the Rascals actually bait both, because sometimes people use their heavy spell, sometimes they use their light spell on them. It really depends. Then you have the Miner to help with like Dark Goblin and Minion Horde and just chip in general. And then of course you have the Log as your like spell to help aid your pushes, and also your defense. So I feel this deck is really strong as well. Then you have Graveyard deck, and I found that the Rascals actually synergize really well with the Dark Goblin, because the Dark Goblin's really annoying. They bait log for each other, and if they've already used their log, you can go like Rascals and Dark Goblin, and basically that's like the Rascal Boy with 3 Rascal Girls behind it, which is even more annoying. So it's a really good combo, and it fits well in Graveyard, because if you defend and then send in a counter push with a Graveyard, the Rascal Boy has so much health. He's basically like a mini tank for the Graveyard. So this deck works really well. Then of course you have like Tombstone to bait poison. Rascals actually bait poison too sometimes. So that's pretty good. And finally, I have this Expo deck. This one's a little clunky, but I still feel like it can work. I'll see about it, but it definitely can work. I subbed in the Archers in the Classic Expo 2.9 for the Rascals. They are better in some circumstances, but they're also worse in other circumstances. But the Rascal provides like a meaty tank plus support, so I feel like it can be a good fit in an Expo deck. Now, Everest, this guy named Awesome22, he really helped me out a lot in this video. He battled me with a bunch of meta or semi-meta decks to kind of help me test the Rascals. So I'll have that gameplay playing in the background while I'm talking about each of the decks. So let's start with the Expo deck. So I was generally playing this like the typical Expo deck. I was trying to use the Rascals to defend his Hog Rider here, so he's running the Hog Rider 3 Musketeer deck that's really popular. So in this battle, I was just trying to use my Rascals to defend the Hog Rider here, and then maybe like counter push with an Expo, since now not only do you have like a tank counter pushing, but you also have like the Rascal Girls, which like help out with DPS and stuff to support your Expo. So here basically what I did was I didn't have my Expo, but if I did have my Expo, I probably would have used it behind the Rascals. So here I use my Expo as soon as the Ice Golem. Um, as soon as the Royal Ghost locks onto the Ice Golem. So here we go. I get an Expo lock, and even though I do lose this match, it is a pretty close match, which is why I feel like it's pretty good to show you guys. So Rascals synergize pretty well with Siege, just because having like a meaty tank and like archers behind it, that's really good with Siege. Like Siege decks, they'll have like Knight and Archers, or they'll have Ice Golem and Archers, just because those kinds of cards work very well to defend it. So here we go. He did actually fireball it, so I think I felt like it's a good opportunity to go in for an Expo. But now that I've talked a little bit about the deck, you guys generally know how it works, because it is just Expo with a modification. So, you know, I'll take this time to talk a little bit more about Rascals in general. So, in terms of originality, I don't feel like they're too original, because, one, it's basically a reskin, but more specialized Knight and Archers. I'm glad that it isn't literally a Knight and Archers, but it is similar to Knight and Archers, which is why it's not that original. And in addition, they also did release Goblin Gang, so it's not like the first combo card that's really come to the game. But I do feel like it is a good card. Regardless of whether or not it's an original card, it is a card that's going to have a huge impact on the meta, especially for its ability to bait spells. Like, I mean, it is good in decks that don't need to bait spells, but I feel like it does work really well in the decks that really need to bait a spell, either a light or a heavy spell, since people do use both on them. As I've found that people really tend to use spells on the Rascals a lot, like even when they don't have to, just because the girls behind the boy tanking can be really annoying to deal with, just because the boy has so much health and the girls do so much damage that unless you really use a spell on them, they're gonna get a lot more value than you can afford. So, I wasn't too excited about them, but as soon as they came out, I was super hyped. I thought they were really OP, and I still think that they're really OP. I mean, what do you guys think? You can tell me what you think about the Rascals in the comments, but I actually thought that they were really OP. Like, game-breakingly OP, basically, because they just offer too much value, whether it's in bait value or if they're just defending and attacking. And also, I don't feel like they're really an offensive card. So everyone's like saying, "Oh, Rascals are so easy to counter. They're so bad. They're not really a threat." But the whole point of the card, in my opinion, is not really to be a threat. They're not a card that's gonna try to take the tower. To me, they're more of like a defensive counter-pushing card, like I said. So they're the kind of card that you defend with, and they get a ton of value on defense. They're super good on defense, and then you translate that to a deadly counter push. And when you do that, they're not just going to be alone. So, like, people were watching tech videos for the Rascals and saying, like, oh my god, I thought I couldn't counter them, but there are really so many ways to counter them. They're not as OP as I thought. Well, that's not really where their value lies. So I still think that they're really OP. Um, and when Supercell made them not just a knight and archers, that means that you can nerf them and stuff without actually like changing the knight and the archers, which I feel is a good idea. So that was the Expo deck. Now we can move on to the Graveyard deck. This one was actually really strong. So basically in this Graveyard deck, you're using your Rascals and your Dark Goblin and your Tombstone to try to bait their poison. The Dark Goblin and the Rascals bait the log very well too, so you can like punish with the other one. If they use their log, you can punish with both, like I said. Generally you're defending with the Rascals, and then you're just counter pushing, using the Boy Rascal as a tank with the Graveyard. You don't really send in a Graveyard unless it's a good time, like you have a good point in your cycle, or you have a lot of elixir, they overcommitted, something like that. You definitely want to be very cautious about when you drop the Graveyard. You don't just want to drop it whenever. So here you go. I definitely use the Dark Goblin to be annoying, and the Dark Goblin synergizes great with the Rascals. It doesn't matter what kind of deck. It can be like a bait deck, it can be a Graveyard deck. Even in Bridge Spam, the Dark Goblin would probably synergize really well with the Rascals. So, I found that to be one of the best synergies, in my opinion. You guys can tell me what you think is the best synergy with the Rascals, but to me it was really the Dark Goblin. So here you go. I just kind of defend, you can easily defend like bridge spam with something like the Rascals because of like the the meat shield and the tank. It's basically one of the strongest defensive combos in the game, but enhanced, and now it's in one card. So here I use my poison. So I can use my poison on offense, but when you're using a graveyard deck versus another deck with poison, you can generally use your poison on offense when they can't, which means that you can chip them out in the long run. So with a deck like this, it's really easy to counter a lot of stuff like bridge spam, because the Rascals are just really solid on defense. Like they're one of the most solid cards, and by solid I mean they do what they need to do. It's like you have the high damage and you have the tank, and it's just, what else do you really need? I mean, like, look how well they counter a bandit, like, or would have countered a bandit if you didn't fireball them. They basically just soak up all the damage, absorb it, and attack, and then they make a huge counter push. So basically you can just play like kind of passive with them. And so in this match, I'm basically defending what he has for most of it. Then I believe I get like one or two big pushes at the end, which just win the game. So that's definitely very good. And against an opponent with Zap, they're going to be having to use their heavy spell on your Rascals every time. So you can definitely generate some positive trades with that. So here I have the Rascals attacking with my Graveyard push. And if they can like lock onto their support or the tower, they're very formidable. So the opponent just had to go Fireball there, and look at the elixir disadvantage that he's at right now. So I had 10 and he had like 3 elixir. So he's trying to like go at the opposite lane, but the Rascals just stop everything. The Dark Prince can't even splash the Rascal girls because the Rascal Boy is like tanking for them. And generally this deck can pretty much defend anything, like with the Tombstone and stuff like that. The Tombstone's really good in this meta too, especially with Graveyard decks since people poison them a lot. So here I just get like damage in both sides because he doesn't bother countering the other side, which is fine, splitting his damage. So like the Ice Golem to kite into the lane that the Rascals have, and then anything in that lane just gets shredded. So I feel like the Rascals, they can kind of take the place of your kind of high damage unit. Like, they took the place of the Lumberjack in my Hog deck. They took the place of the Archers in my Expo deck, because, like, Archers are kind of that support unit that deals the damage. So, they can take, like, the place of a Mini P.E.K.K.A. or something like that, since they do a lot of damage. They're definitely a very good card. So let's move on to the next deck here. Let's see. So I believe it was the bait deck. So this one again has Dark Goblin because Dark Goblin is just so strong with the Rascals. It also has a lot of other bait cards to really synergize. So here I'm versing a Lava Loon deck, meaning this kind of deck generally does really well against Lava Loon because they'll drop the Lava Hound and you can pressure them so hard. You can like almost always take a tower and then keep pressuring for the 3 crown, and they'll just have so much trouble trying to stop it that they'll never be able to get a good lava loon push down. So he fireballs the Zappies, so like no matter what he fireballs or logs, I'm always going to have something to punish. There's never going to be a time where I don't have something to punish with a deck like this. Some bait decks have like some bait cards, but then other support cards, but in this deck, pretty much every card except the log and the miner is a bait card, meaning I use it to punish, which is actually really good. So here you go. I just used the Dark Goblin on defense, and I feel like the Rascals. The Dark Goblin on defense and... Sorry guys, the video cut out, but like I was saying, like the Rascals, the Dark Goblin does really well on like defensive counter pushes. If they don't have log, you can like combine them with a miner, a goblin gang, things like that. Here the opponent didn't actually have like a heavy spell, so it was incredibly hard to stop and incredibly annoying here. So like the Dark Goblin gets ton of chip when it has the miner to tank for it. So like miner Dark Goblin is a really good, really annoying combo that makes the opponent overcommit a lot. And generally the Rascals just work very well with the Dark Goblin. So the Rascals in this deck, in kind of like a bait deck, they're not mainly defensive counter push cards like they are in the other decks that I showed. In like a bait deck, Rascals are an offensive card given that you've already baited out your opponent's spell. So for example, if they have log for your Rascals and you've baited that out and then you like baited out their fireball, Rascals can be an offensive card as well, because now you can use them to like I can use them to just pressure really hard. So against something like Lava Loon, if you just pressure really hard with like Rascals and Goblin Gang, stuff like that, when they don't have their fireball, it's ridiculously hard to stop. So generally Rascals are defensive cards, except for when they're in like a bait deck like this and you've baited out spells. But this match is pretty much over. I'll start speeding up the matches now. I don't feel like I really need to show you the whole match. Plus the video is getting a bit long, so... And I've already covered a lot of the stuff, general stuff about Rascals, so we should be able to cover the other decks pretty quickly. So, let's get into some of the other decks here. I think we could do the bridge spam one. So, the Rascals, they work well in bridge spam because, like I said, log bait. So, if your opponent has log, then you can use, like, your bridge spam. Then if they log that, you can use Rascals and, like, a battle ram or something like that. So, the idea with this is that the offensive ability of the Rascals is serving, like, another bridge spam card. So the Rascals acts almost like another bridge spam card in this deck. Because basically you're just baiting out their log and then just going in with the Rascals and some other bridge spam. So in this deck also you use it defensively when you have to, but you can also use it offensively. So there are some decks where you can use it offensively, and then there are some decks where you mainly use it defensively and counter pushing. So basically in this battle I just keep up the pressure. And I use the Rascals on offense to like counter push with stuff. And the Rascals play a very strong defensive and offensive role in this deck. While their specialty is defense, like you can see here, and it baited out as Fireball. So like people spend a lot more elixir than they have to, and then the Rascal Boy still survives. So that's part of what makes Rascals so strong in the game. So here, I believe it's a very close match, because, like, I'm just trying to get to the tower and finish it off, but he's just, with all of his stuff, he's not letting me, and then the hog finishes the tower. That was a close game, but it still lets you see, like, the power of Rascals, both offensively and defensively, in the right decks, and the final one's this hog Inferno Dragon deck. Very strong, especially against stuff like Giant, because the Inferno Dragon just gets so much value. But Rascals overall, for me, they're just a really strong card. You'll definitely be seeing them in a lot of my decks. As soon as I get them up to tournament standard, I can start doing like grand challenges with some of these decks. I can really start, pushing the limits of what Rascals can do. So, for now, this is just kind of an overarching video, kind of talking a bit about them. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope it's useful to you. Just some like general tips with Rascals. Also, when dealing with like splash units with Rascals, basically what you want to do is you want to position it so that it targets the boy Rascal. So if you put the boy Rascal like right next to the if you put the boy Rascal right next to their like bowler or their wizard or whatever, then it'll actually target onto that and not the Rascal girl. So that's what you need. So on defense, they basically counter anything. Like they're not even like conditional. You can basically counter everything. Like whether you're countering like spam troops, or you're countering like a tank, whether you're countering basically, you can counter anything with it. You can counter like air troops. You can counter swarm troops. You can counter like high damage troops. You can counter high health troops. You can basically counter anything, and that's what makes Rascals to me such a strong card. The fact that no matter what the circumstance, you'll always be able to find Rascals' value, whether in defense or in offense. So, overall, my giveaway is that Rascals are a 9 out of 10 in terms of, like, card ranking. How good are they? Definitely an A-tier card to me. You can use them in any scenario. It doesn't even matter. It's really, really, really a good card, and I really feel that you guys, when you unlock it, or if you've unlocked it, you should test it, you should use it, you should find the very best decks for it, because I foresee them in the next meta. I hope you guys enjoyed these decks that I showed you today. Hopefully you guys find success with one of them either now or in the future, and I'll be seeing you in my next video. Bye. And also, sorry for the cutout, and also join Necros Gaming. It's definitely growing very fast. We do already have 19 people, which is amazing. So, thank you, and enjoy, and I'll see you next time.